Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing great out there tonight and had yourselves a wonderful day. And I hope everyone has had a great weekend out there, as unfortunately it's coming to an end already. It seems like it just started, right? But here we are coming to an end to it and about to start another work week. And we're talking about the potential for a tropical storm forming sometime tonight. In fact, it is forecast to do so. We have a tropical storm Helene that will most likely develop sometime tonight into tomorrow morning and then make a landfall sometime tomorrow afternoon. Peak intensity is up to 50 miles per hour. So, we've been talking about this a little bit over the last several days. I remember about a week ago we mentioned that, we were kind of watching something that could get going off a stalled frontal boundary off the coast of the southeast. And here we are a week later, and something is developing. It's well on its way to developing into a tropical storm. So we're going to give you all the latest information. We'll talk about what's going on with it right now, latest from the National Hurricane Center. We'll talk about impacts, speak on what the radar could look like. We'll even talk about, show you guys what the radar looks like right now. And then for the very end of the video, we will speak on the Caribbean. I'm going to just kind of speak on a little bit. I am watching that area in like the day 6 to 10 range. I really think something could get going down there. I think that'll be the next thing that we'll be watching after we get past what is likely going to be Helene, Helene. I thought it was Helen for the longest, but it's Helene. So tropical storm Helene is likely going to form tonight. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can do that and so others can do so too. So let's get rocking and rolling. Let's make sure our thing is working over here. And it is, so we're good to go. So, of course, this doesn't look super impressive. Technically, right now, it's dubbed PTC-8, Potential Tropical Cyclone 8. And that's just something the National Hurricane Center started doing a few years back. They dub it this when it's most likely going to become a tropical depression or a named storm, which would be a tropical storm. So this is what we got, popping off intense mid to upper level convection right into here. The actual center of circulation, that low-level circulation that we look for, is probably up under all this mid-level convection. In fact, the hurricane hunters confirmed that there is a defined low-level circulation somewhere into here. It's hard to see what's going on. You can see sort of the flow going like this, and then it comes out like this. So you can tell there's definitely a cyclonic flow up under this mid-level convection. So what I'm trying to say is this big blob of white you see on your screen is a tropical disturbance well on its way to becoming a tropical storm. So this is what we got right now. You can tell that the screen is beginning to dim somewhat. It's because the sun is starting to slowly set out here on the southwest Atlantic and the southeast. So this is what we got right here, PTC-8, soon to be tropical storm Helene. So we'll give you the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Here's another look at it. This big blob of white right here is the tropical disturbance. Potential tropical cyclone 8. I just got to stop saying it. I'm going to end up slipping up my words here, but will develop into a tropical storm sometime tonight. By the 2 a.m. update, expect to upgrade to a tropical storm, 45 miles per hour. And then by the time we get into 2 p.m. tomorrow, it could get all the way up to a 50 mile per hour tropical storm. And the actual center of circulation, the actual low-level circulation, could make landfall anywhere between Charleston and Myrtle Beach. But I think the worst impacts will definitely be kind of on the eastern, the northern side of the system. So even though, for example, Columbia is in the path of uncertainty here, I think regardless, the worst of the impacts, say if the path actually does go right through Florence, for example, I think the worst impacts will be on this side, like closer to Fayetteville, up to down to Myrtle Beach, to Fayetteville, up to Greensboro, rather than over to Columbia. But we just got to see what happens here. If this was to kind of come and do something like this and maybe make landfall down here, then obviously this is going to bring the worst impacts a little bit further south and southwest. But this is the latest cone from the National Hurricane Center and what we're dealing with right at this second. This is a quick developing system. I mean, this is happening right now, which we kind of thought was going to be the case. Honestly, I would be surprised if this has kind of snuck up on anybody, because we have been talking about a little bit over the last several days. But I think what might surprise people is the fact that this is going to become a tropical storm, most likely. So the more classic look, well, let's show you this real quick. Okay, so the actual remnants of this is actually going to go right through western North Carolina, the Triad of North Carolina, all the way up into western Virginia. But like I've said a couple times over the last few minutes, a lot of the impacts is going to be on this side. So even though the center of circulation might go right up through here, a lot of the impacts are going to be right in here. The big slug of moisture is going to be on this side rather than this side of the actual low pressure. If you see my face light up like that, it's because the sun is blasting in my blinds here in the window right beside me. So anyways, we'll get this back off. You see any movement behind me too, that is a cat. That's Stormy laying on the bed behind me. That is a cat. So if you do see any movement, just a cat here. So if this video seems kind of everywhere, guys, it's because I decided to do it at the last second. Didn't really have time to put all my thoughts together and really make this more professional, I guess you would say. Just wanted to get the information out to you. That was my main priority here. So, and you can see this, the classic look from the National Hurricane Center. You see the orange area here. Some people might call that more so yellow. That's definitely orange. But the center of circulation is right here. But this orange area, that is where tropical storm force wind conditions extend outward from the center of this system. So you notice it's all on the northern side and the kind of northeastern side. And yeah, I mean, it's out ahead of this storm too. So this area in orange is just going to kind of ride this side of the storm up into here. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, even if the center does take this path, you're thinking, well, like places like the Midlands of South Carolina, Columbia, they should see a lot of impacts, right? Well, you could see some breezy conditions, but I think that, say, Columbia will see significantly less impacts than, say, Fayetteville, which is kind of on both sides of the other ends of the cones, if that makes any sense. So I'll explain that more when we actually show you a simulation of what the radar can look like per the HRRR model. But S stands for tropical storm, D for tropical depression. So obviously it weakens with land interaction. But I do want to show you this. I know it's very small on your screen. I'm going to try to zoom into this a little bit. But Wilmington, Southport, well, Wilmington technically does not have tropical storm warnings. You do have flash flood watches though. But Myrtle Beach, you guys, I'm sorry, flood watches, not flash flood watches here. But Myrtle Beach, Conway, Georgetown, Southport, up to Carolina Beach, Wrightsville Beach, you guys, a Little River, have tropical storm warning. So you might live in Myrtle Beach and like, man, where in the heck did this come from? Well, you know, if you've been tuning in, we've been kind of talking about the possibility of a tropical storm forming off the coast of the Carolinas, and here we are. You guys have tropical storm warnings to greet you a Sunday evening. So let's take a look at this thing right now. This is the latest radar. As you can tell, if you look really closely right here, you can quite literally see a little bit of a spin, the cyclonic spin right here. So you see all this moisture spinning around this actual low. So this is pushing a lot of tropical moisture right up against the southeast North Carolina coastline, right up against the northeast South Carolina coastline. So Myrtle Beach up to Wilmington, even Georgetown has been seeing off and on rain all day, some heavy. We're even getting some more so storm action up here in eastern North Carolina that continues to rotate in. Also, some scattered pockets of drizzle have made it all the way to the Midlands. You know, I was mowing my grass earlier here in Columbia, South Carolina, and I got a couple sprinkles that, you know, hit me out there. You know, it was definitely welcome. But all in all, a lot of this is not reaching the central Carolinas yet. But that'll change once this moves inland like this. I think areas like Charlotte could get soaked from this. Quick soaking for sure. So this is an actual real-time look at this. Is the radar. You can see the spin right here. I mean, you can quite literally see it. Low pressure right in here. So this is going to continue to track kind of like that. Could do something like that, and it very well could do something like this. In fact, you know, there's a pretty big spread. And I will say this, and I know I'm getting hung up on this probably too long. For this to be something that's this close, that is a pretty wide spread on this cone. I mean, it's going from south of Charleston all the way to the North Carolina, South Carolina border pretty much. I mean, normally this cone is a lot more narrow this close in time. I mean, it is very narrow, but it's a pretty wide spread this far out. I'm sorry, this close. It really is. So let's take a look at what the radar could look like. So let's take a look at the HRRR model, and then I'm going to show you a local in-house model that it's nothing I created. It's what some of these local stations kind of make in-house It's just the best way to explain it there. But we look at the latest HRRR model. We get into tonight. Slugs of moisture continue to get pushed into the southeast North Carolina coastline, northeast South Carolina coastline, just like pretty much what's happening right now. But as we're waking up tomorrow morning, conditions will continue to deteriorate along the North Carolina coastline, all the way down to Myrtle Beach. And then by the time we are getting into about midday tomorrow, conditions can really go downhill from like Georgetown to Myrtle Beach, up the Little River, Southport, all the way to Wilmington. You see this like red and orange right in here, almost kind of splotches of purple. This is where you could have a tense 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts associating with some of this banding that kind of moves in, that's wrapping around that actual center of low pressure. That is going to be Helene. And then you got to watch out for all this also. This could be a little bit of a tornado risk as we get these feeder bands that get pushed into the North Carolina coastline through midday, early afternoon, all the way into tomorrow evening. There could be a tornado risk with this, including a little bit of storm surge along the immediate coastline, gusty winds, heavy rain. But the core of this system moves in somewhere into this area right here. And that, like I said, around midday, early afternoon, even late morning to early afternoon tomorrow, likely will be the time frame, give or take a few to several hours. But it could get quite nasty around this area tomorrow. Now, how bad is it going to get? You know, it's not going to be like a hurricane or anything like that, but it could catch some people by surprise that let this thing sneak up on them, because there's going to be a lot of people that it does sneak. This does, like, you're going to get into tomorrow afternoon in like Conway, Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, and be like, man, what in the heck is this? And then you're going to look on your phone and realize you're under a tropical storm warning. So that's why I kind of want to jump on here and make this video, so it does not catch people by surprise. Be interested if they cancel schools from Myrtle Beach up to Wilmington tomorrow. But as we're getting into tomorrow afternoon, we have to watch to see how far west this band does get. Does it make it all the way over to Columbia? But even getting into tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, look at all this heavy rain, gusty winds that are moving through the Fayetteville area, Chesterfield, all the way down to Florence. All these areas right in here, the Sandhills of North Carolina, PD of South Carolina. Kind of the same thing that Debbie did through this area like a month and a half ago. A month ago, I don't forgot. It's been about, 5 or 6 weeks ago. It does seem like it's been a while. I was going to say it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it really does seem like it was a long time ago now that I think about it. But these are the bands you want to watch here also. You see this area right in here? Actual low-level circulation probably right into here. But these feeder bands that are working throughout this area, they could pose a bit of a tornado risk. So do not be surprised. And all of eastern North Carolina tomorrow, if your area gets under a tornado warning, it's expected with any kind of tropical system on the northeast to eastern quadrant of the tropical system. Okay? So this continues. Now, this is what I'm talking about. The actual low-level circulation is right here. But all the action's on the north side, the northeast, the eastern side of the system. There ain't a whole lot going on this side of the system. And that's typically the case with a weaker tropical system. But you keep this going here, and we start to get into like late tomorrow evening. This is like 10, 11 p.m. You're definitely going to get a solid, rainy, gusty wind kind of night across central North Carolina, even down to like Rock Hill, the upstate of South Carolina. And I mean, I'm still concerned about these feeder bands right in here. You see this banding feature? I wouldn't be surprised we get an upgrade in the severe weather risk tomorrow. I mean, this is after the sun sets. This is around 11 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. All these bands is working its way behind the actual low pressure of what's going to be Helene. Is going to pose a flooding risk, and you're going to continue to get that onshore flow that's going to bring that tornado risk. And these tropical systems, they bring their own spin, they bring their own low-level jet, own low-level flow, if you will, and that aids in the environment for a tornado risk. So we'll continue to watch that. Get this off your screen, continue to move forward here. And this thing just kind of slowly moves. It's not going to be that fast, so it's going to dump several inches of rain. So by the time we're getting into the wee hours of the morning tomorrow morning, folks, I mean, not tomorrow morning, I'm sorry, Tuesday morning, Hickory, up to Boone, western North Carolina, even into the tri-state area of Tennessee, western Virginia, getting a lot of rain all the way into Tuesday morning. Okay, and it actually has this thing throwing a big slug of moisture all the way into eastern Tennessee too, so that's something to watch. It actually pushes the low-level circulation, the HRRR model does, all the way into eastern Tennessee. So, well, this is as far as we'll go. We'll go to about midday Tuesday. I do want to show you an in-house model run here. Daniel Bonds, good friend of mine here in the Midlands of South Carolina, posts this, and I always love when he posts this. And I'm going to try to stop it here. Hopefully I didn't just stop the video. I didn't. So we'll stop it here. This is around 11:30 tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to put this in motion. There ain't a really great way I can slow. Well, yeah, I can. So I actually can control this. So we keep this in motion. We get into 2:45. I mean, look at the band. Look at this nasty band right here, working its way throughout eastern South Carolina. This might be a little bit blurry here on your screen, but if this model is correct, this would bring some big impacts, some gusty winds, very heavy rain all across eastern South Carolina tomorrow. And then it would bring these feeder bands right here across areas of eastern North Carolina. And just the North Carolina-South Carolina border here could get pretty intense, some pretty nasty tomorrow, just something you want to watch here. And then we take it all the way into tomorrow evening for our Monday evening. If you hear anything in the background, it's my brother's little girl that's here, and she's just 1 year old, so you know it's a baby. So if you hear any kids in the background, that's what it is. But anyways, getting into tomorrow evening, this band does make it all the way into Columbia, all the way to Charlotte. You get these bands that are surging into Raleigh, and this would bring some conditions all the way into Columbia, like tomorrow evening. Look, you see it's 10:15, so gusty winds. You got to watch all this over here too for a tornado threat. And check out the spin, guys. This would bring rain all the way throughout South Carolina just about. So these models are still a little bit different. Look at that spin. And look, it's very slow. There's not much forward motion with this. So it actually gets over the PD of South Carolina, upstate of South Carolina, central North Carolina, like Tuesday morning, and just sits there and spins. And then finally moves north. Now the HRRR model has this thing going over here to eastern Tennessee. So this would, I mean, if I get this in motion, check this out. Pretty wild stuff, right? I mean, you can quite literally see the low-level spin. So I'll go through this one more time. This is 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, getting all the way to about midday here. And then we get to about tomorrow evening around dinner time, 6:15, 6:30. And then we take it all the way to about midnight tomorrow night. And we go all the way out to about 7 a.m. Tuesday. And this thing's still spinning around. So definitely pretty wild stuff here. And let's see if there's a really good way that I can get this off my screen here. Here we go. So awesome. We continue to move this forward here, and we actually look at how much rain could fall over the next, this is between now and Wednesday morning. Several inches of rain, but there's a sharp cutoff here. Notice, I mean, Orangeburg up to Columbia, up to like Greenville, not a whole lot of rain, but you get into like Florence, you get into Rock Hill, Fayetteville, Charlotte, 2 to as much as 3 to 4 inches of rain. Of course, you're going to get maybe even a half a foot of rain from Myrtle Beach up into Wilmington, all the way to the southern edge of the Outer Banks. But, I mean, a big washout coming for the entire state of North Carolina up into Virginia. So this is how much rain is expected. This could certainly differ depending on what forecast you're watching, but in general, several inches of rain. Now, this is the National Weather Service forecast for winds. It's typically conservative. It's typically right, too. But you know, we've had pretty breezy conditions all day across the Carolinas. If you haven't walked outside, certainly do it. It's been breezy since like late last night. But of course, it has the strongest winds right here in North Carolina, PD of South Carolina, where we could get a 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gust. Not consistent winds like that, but wind gusts, 30 to 40 miles per hour. It's possible, some isolated wind gusts of that strength. So, you know, certainly could get some scattered power outages, I would say isolated. But if you look at like the HRRR model, it has this swath of a potential for like 30, 40, 45 mile per hour wind gusts, maybe as high end as a 50 mile per hour wind gust, like along the Grand Strand up to Little River, all the way up to like Wilmington or something like that. It would definitely have the strongest winds right into this area right here as the core of the system moves onshore. Now, with the feeder bands moving in too, on the northeast side of the system, you're going to get some strong gusty winds too into eastern North Carolina. But the rest of the core of the system does move up through North Carolina, the PD of South Carolina, and bring some strong gusty winds. So we will watch that, see how that unfolds. And, you know, this is the latest Euro, for example, that's a little bit further south. So it brings some gustier winds more so into South Carolina than North Carolina. So that's something we want to watch. And you know, I do want to show you guys something on the fly here. If you look at like model guidance from this, and well, that stinks. Oh, cool. I guess it's not going to show it to us. Let's look at the GEFS ensemble. You notice that there's a lot of members that get deeper into South Carolina. There's some members that get further into North Carolina. But, you know, the guidance has actually ticked a little bit further south. The more this ticks south, the more widespread this will be for like South Carolina. It's just something we need to watch. And this is honestly not even worth going over tons of model guidance because this is happening right now, right? But the potential storm surge, not expecting anything significant. From about Georgetown up to Oregon Inlet, pretty much getting up here into the Outer Banks, 1 to 3 feet of storm surge is possible. So water will certainly get pushed up against these inlets, these bays, and just the coastline, but nothing significant whatsoever. There will be a little bit of a tornado risk tomorrow, like I've mentioned throughout the video. If you live in the dark green area, it's where we have a marginal risk. And this is driven off that tornado risk. There is a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location from a very small portion of South Carolina throughout all of eastern North Carolina. I don't expect this to be a huge deal, but I do think we'll get a couple tornado warnings tomorrow. Some of these feeder bands make their way throughout the area over the next, I would say from tomorrow morning and then about 24 hours after that. So we got to watch that for sure. That could upgrade to a slight risk. It very well could. It's just something we got to watch. But, you know, moving past that, we're going to give you another update in the morning. Things could certainly change for sure, but I do think we'll have Tropical Storm Helene with us as we're waking up tomorrow morning and doing our morning update. But I do want to talk about the Caribbean. I'm not going to stay on this very long. I want to show you some of the latest model guidance. I'm going to start this for like next Saturday morning, so 6 days from now, September the 21st. You see this big blob of green down here? I want to watch some energy that's going to try to get going in the Caribbean. As it does, I think some sort of upper low slings it northward across Cuba, and then we got to watch just this unsettled area of weather about, like I said, it's going to be in the 6 to 10 day range, somewhere in, I'm going to circle an area, somewhere in this area right into here. Now, this could get over here too, but I think the origins of this is going to be somewhere into here or into here. Oh, this is everywhere. Let me start over. The origins of this is going to be somewhere into here, and then it's going to get slung northward. And we got to just watch this area. I really want to watch this area. I'm going to be watching it like crazy throughout the next week. But, you know, the latest GFS does show something trying to get going, but then it gets pushed on out to sea. Okay, now, we have a new run. Probably have a new run going now. We do, but it only goes out 66 hours. So, the latest Euro just shows a bunch of unsettled weather. Nothing too crazy. You see all this green right here. Just so it shows a bunch of unsettled weather. Nothing organizes it whatsoever. So the Euro, which is a very conservative model, I will say, doesn't show anything. Now the Canadian model shows something developing inside a week. So by the time we're into the Canadian says, and I just want to show you because this is one of the aggressive scenarios. I'm going to show you the most conservative, kind of the medium, and the most aggressive scenario. The Canadian, about a week from today, shows an all-out tropical storm in the Western Caribbean, and then it moves over Cuba. Then, of course, it does what we don't want it to do, and then makes landfall some sort of stronger tropical system into Florida sometime, not this week, but next, and then does some wacky stuff after that. I can tell you there's a pretty strong signal in the GEFS ensemble for something developing. Remember, this makes up 21 members and throws it all in the output for us, and you see kind of the more vibrant colors down here, the yellows, the oranges. This tells us where there's a bunch of members grouping up, and just kind of shows where there's a signal highlighted by coloring here of some sort of tropical disturbance. And this is for next Monday morning, the 23rd, and does show a signal developing in the Caribbean, moving northward, and then you get a big spread of solutions after 10 days out. So we'll continue to watch this. I'll have you another update in the morning. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow morning.